Ronald the Rules Lawyer. First, I must apologize for my relative lack of dress today. It's hot and I'm hot, and it doesn't happen very often in San Francisco. I'm talking about the weather. Recently, I watched a video by Treant Monk where he showed an exploit in D&D 5th edition where players could shape change into Merilith's demons and get a reaction every turn in combat, so that includes every enemy turn, and they could use the Silvery Barb spell at their leisure, causing every successful check by an enemy to prompt a reroll and also grant advantage to one of their allies. And I thought, ha ha ha, that silly game D&D. At least Pathfinder is not broken. Pathfinder is balanced. Or is it? Well, I have come to a realization that it is broken also and utterly unplayable. Before I get into it, I am Ronald the Rules Lawyer. I am a lawyer who runs tabletop role-playing games. My preferred system is Pathfinder 2e. Support my Patreon. I don't make money as a lawyer. For more info, watch the video whose thumbnail is on the screen. And also, you get early access to most of my videos and exclusive content. I need to point people to my colleague Swing Ripper, who does a Pathfinder optimization channel. He is doing a video that will drop the same day as this about what he describes as a party that can never lose. So check out that video after this one. I'll link to it in the description. All right, I'm now going to cover 5 broken things in Pathfinder 2nd edition in no particular order. I'll set up this first one by talking first about how powerful having fast speed is in Pathfinder. Because movement costs an action, having that extra 5 foot of speed can get you right where you want and give you an extra action to do what you want to do. Also, you can skirmish in this game. Enemies don't have opportunity attacks by default, so if you have a faster speed than your enemy, you can go in, strike, and go out, and that foe who is slower than you will need 2 actions to walk up to you. That's why the Fleet feat, which increases your speed by 5 feet, is a general feat. General feats are generally hard to get. You can only get one every 4 levels in the game. And for most characters, your first one's at level 3. But what if I told you you can get a plus 10 bonus to your speed, and that it only costs a lowly skill feat? Well, that can be done with the trick magic item Tailwind combo. And those of you who have followed my channel know that I loathe the Tailwind spell. It used to be called Long Strider. It is a spell that for 1 hour gives you a plus 10 status bonus to your speed, and if you heighten it to just a mere 2nd rank, it lasts 8 hours, which covers the typical adventuring day. Tailwind can only be cast on yourself, however, but you can get around that with the trick magic item skill feat, which any character can take who is trained in one of the 4 magic skills. You just do a skill check, and as long as you don't critically fail, don't roll a nat 1, then you can, if you don't succeed, try again. It costs an action, but again, you can keep trying, and for a buff that lasts 8 hours, that isn't much of a drawback. And the way wands work in Pathfinder is you can cast that spell once per day, forever. A level 5 wand can have the heightened version of Tailwind, which, as you get to higher levels, is a trivial cost. It only costs 160 gold. And I don't like this. This is basically an auto pick for any table that runs by rules as written. You get a skill feat every other level. Some classes get them even more often. And you can spend a general feat on nearly all skill feats. The other problem with this is that Tailwind's status bonus to speed steps on the toes of some core features of some classes. The Monk's Incredible Movement class feature gives a status bonus to speed, so they can't access this buff because of their class feature, and it lessens how extraordinary they are. Barbarians can get a feat called Fast Movement, which gives a plus 10 status bonus to speed. Again, doesn't stack with this. And Swashbuckler's Panache is also a status bonus. The Tailwind exploit is bad for the game. I don't allow it. Next is something I have not banned yet. And okay, you see the Gnome Flick Mace on the screen, which is notorious as being overpowered in Pathfinder 2nd edition. It's actually been adjusted. I wouldn't say it's been nerfed. It's more of a side grade. But that's not what I'm honing in on. I'm honing in on a combination of things. So let's look at the Gnome Flick Mace. Yes, it is strong. First is a one-handed weapon that is a reach weapon. There are very few one-handed reach weapons in Pathfinder. And on top of that, it is in the flail group, which means that if you can do the critical specialization effect of this weapon, which can be unlocked by many martial classes, then you get to knock an enemy prone when you critically hit them with this weapon. Now, this has been nerfed. They now get a reflex save now. It used to be automatic, but still, knocking someone prone is a powerful debuff. They get -2 to their attacks, and they have to stand up to right themselves. And standing up can provoke attacks of opportunity if you have allies that have that. Even worse if you can grapple them while they're on the ground, which prevents them from taking move actions like standing. Now, let's put this on a fighter who has a +2 accuracy bonus on top of pretty much every other martial class, and therefore can get that +10 over AC that triggers a critical hit. And that fighter has reactive strike, so they get to make a free strike as a reaction when an enemy leaves a square within 10 feet of the fighter. So if they have to get up close, fighter gets a free strike and a possible knockdown. And let's add the crushing rune. Yes, it's an uncommon rune, but I usually allow uncommon items in my games, but maybe not this one. It's quite strong. When you critically hit a foe, they become clumsy 1 and enfeebled 1 until the end of your next turn. The greater version makes them clumsy 2 and enfeebled 2. Those are status penalties. So it stacks with the off guard condition. So you can knock them prone with your crushing flail, and now they have a -4 penalty to armor class, which in Pathfinder is huge. Remember, you can critically hit somebody if you exceed their AC by 10. And we're not done yet. We're going to add a spell heart to our flail. Spell hearts are, unlike talismans, permanent buffs to a weapon. And the phantasmal doorknob, if attached to a weapon, means that when you critically hit a foe, they are dazzled until the end of their next turn. That means all creatures are concealed to them, so they have a 20% miss chance to target anybody with anything. That stacks with their attack penalty from being prone. If you get the greater version, a level 10 item, they are blinded on a critical hit. That means everyone is hidden, so a 50% miss chance. So this means by level 10, when you critically hit a foe, you might knock them prone, and you'll make them clumsy 2, enfeebled 2, and blinded for a turn. All with a one-handed weapon, so you still have your other hand to hold a shield to protect yourself. Or we can have 2 gnome flick maces and use a feat like the fighter's level 1 feat, Double Slice, which lets you make an attack with each, and the multiple attack penalty with the second attack, instead of being -5, is only -2. Completely broken, and I would add too that this one-handed reach flail is not the only one. There's also the whips in the game. Now keep in mind all of these negative conditions on a foe as we go to the next broken thing in Pathfinder. And some of you who have been following the online discussions will know what's coming. It is the Resentment Witch. Witches have subclasses and they get to choose a patron. And if they have the Resentment as their patron, they can, with every time they cast or sustain a hex, and there are hex cantrips that cost only 1 action that you can cast every turn, then your familiar curses a creature within 15 feet of it, prolonging the duration of any negative conditions affecting it by 1 round, so long as the condition has a time duration, such as 1 round or until the end of your next turn, which qualifies our clumsy 2, enfeebled 2, and being blinded from the last thing. And it is plural. All of the negative conditions are extended. And because it generally only costs 1 action to cast or sustain a hex, you can do this forever, so long as you and your familiar survive, which is possible if you can lock down that enemy. Sure, maybe they can target your familiar, but the other group of spells that give a target for the enemy to attack, those that have that status are the summon spells, and those cost 3 actions to cast. This is something that is set up for far less and without using a resource. This is a nasty combination with spells like Slow. That is the spell that when a foe succeeds on their saving throw, they are slowed 1 for 1 round. They lose an action for 1 round. You can continue this ad infinitum and effectively make a successful save into a failed save so long as you can spend the actions. And this does not have the incapacitation trait like many other spells in Pathfinder do in order to make them less effective against boss creatures. This one doesn't have that. You can make that boss slowed 1 for an entire fight. Another notorious spell that this can combine with is Synesthesia from the core rulebook from 2019. This one has multiple effects. There's a chance that any concentrate action will fail. All creatures are concealed to it. It has a -10 status penalty to speeds, and it is Clumsy 3, a -3 status penalty to their armor class and reflex save. And when they succeed on their saving throw, all of these things last for 1 round, but you can extend this with the Resentment Familiar. Now, arguably, most people, and I do this too, read negative conditions in a narrow sense. Those things that are listed under the conditions section of the player core. The reason why we do this is because it's already super strong. So here, arguably, this only extends to Clumsy 3. But everybody be concealed to it? That sounds like they're dazzled. It seems a bit arbitrary, but necessary to contain the power of this ability. Notably, Swing Ripper has informed me that the grapple action makes a foe grabbed, which is a listed condition in the conditions appendix, until the end of your next turn. So, reading the ability literally, you can keep that enemy grabbed without having to make another check, and yes, grappling is strong in Pathfinder. Escaping it might not succeed, and it increases your multiple attack penalty. My next utterly broken thing is a little-known spell printed in an adventure path called Spiritual Anamnesis. So you cast it on a foe, and if they succeed on their save, they are slowed 1 for 1 round. If they fail, they're slowed for a minute as they babble. And if they critically fail, they are also stunned 3. So it kind of sounds like the slow spell. In fact, a little weaker. But this has greater effect against the undead and creatures that have lived a previous life, such as celestials, fiends, monitors, and many other extraplanar creatures. If they roll a critical success on their save, and this doesn't have the incapacitation trait, they get a success only instead. And if they roll a failure, they get a critical failure. So a foe who's undead or an angel or a demon who critically succeeds on their save becomes slowed 1, and we have our Resentment Witch from earlier. They can extend that suffering through a whole combat. If they merely fail and don't critically fail, they are stunned 3. Now, granted, this is uncommon, and you need to know a specific organization to get access to this spell in the lore. But there are many spells that have that same limitation that are not broken like this. This shouldn't be the way it is. All right, the next thing has to do with the Kineticist, which everybody loves. Oh, everybody loved the Kineticist when it came out. It's like Avatar: The Last Airbender. We love bending the elements. We like at-will spell-like powers, yada, yada, yada. Everyone was giving it a tongue bath. Well, I dissent, and I'm going to talk about what some of you may be expecting, which is Timber Sentinel, a level 1 impulse that wood Kineticists can get. This lets you basically cast a rank 1 spell, Protector Tree, at will throughout the day. Now, casting an at-level spell at full power at will is unprecedented for the Kineticist. There are other impulses, powers that the Kineticist can get that give you the power of a spell, but it's always reduced for your level. So, Rock Rampart, which a level 12 Kineticist can get, lets them cast Wall of Stone, which is a 5th rank spell, which 9th level casters, a caster 3 levels lower than this Kineticist, can cast. But the wall can be only 40 feet long versus 120 feet. You also overflow when you do this. You lose your kinetic aura and have to restore it. And you must spend an action every subsequent turn to sustain this, whereas the Wall of Stone is permanent. And this can't be permanent. It can only last up to 1 minute, unlike Wall of Stone. Also, it heightens every 4 character levels, so that at level 20, you are still making a wall that is only half as long as this 5th rank spell, Wall of Stone. There are other examples for Kineticist powers, where you can do a spell, but it's a weaker version. Not true with Timber Sentinel. It lets you cast Protector Tree at will. So let's look at what Protector Tree does. You create a medium tree. It has 10 hit points. Whenever an ally adjacent to it is hit by a strike, the tree intercedes and takes the damage before your ally does. This might kill the tree, but who gives a shit? You can make another one. Now, how strong is this? Well, let's compare it to some other spells and powers in the game. Let's compare it to the powerful heal spell, one of the strongest spells in the game that heals somebody 1d8 plus 8 hit points per spell rank. So an average of 12.5. This is a comparable number of hit points, 10. Not very different. However, damage mitigation is more powerful than healing in this game especially, because being knocked out is nasty in Pathfinder. If you fall unconscious, you drop everything you're holding and it costs an action to pick up each item up again. You fall prone. Standing up is an entire action as well. And you increase your wounded condition, making each following knockout deadlier. But damage mitigation also has the effect of deterring attacks against your allies to begin with. Why go for the guy protected by the tree? Super valuable if you have a wounded ally who you want to protect from being knocked out. Let's compare this to another spell that does damage mitigation, False Vitality, formerly called False Life. It's a second rank spell that gives you 10 temporary hit points. They are reduced before your main hit points. So it's kind of the same effect as this. However, this is a second rank ability, whereas Protector Tree gave us the same amount of hit points at level 1 with a first rank ability. And when you heighten Protector Tree, it goes up by 10 hit points with each rank, whereas False Vitality only goes up by 3. So by rank 10, our tree has 100 hit points, whereas False Vitality has 34. But of course, you can do Timber Sentinel over and over again, unlike spells. Also, I didn't mention the fact that more than one of your allies can benefit from this tree. You and your allies can all stand around this tree and all be protected by it and deter attacks against all of you. Another damage mitigation ability to compare to is Shield Block. You can raise a shield, which costs an action, and you spend a reaction to soak some damage with that shield. But that costs an action to set up, but that means a PC is spending an action and spending a reaction, plus you have a limited pool of hit points in that shield. And it costs a reaction, so you can only trigger it once, whereas the Protector Tree doesn't require any ally to spend any actions, and it can defend against damage multiple times without anyone using any reactions. And a shield, you have to spend an action every round to raise it, whereas Protector Tree lasts 1 minute. And unlike Shield Block, it just has to be damage from a strike. It can be non-physical damage. So we have an ability that is about as strong as the heal spell that you can do all day. Now sure, it has an armor class of only 10, so a foe can critically hit it pretty easily, but if they're spending 1 or 2 actions wasting time on the tree, then you've kind of halfway won. Just make another damn tree. And I have not even talked about the fact that you can make a forest with this ability. All right, so that's it. So people who are unfamiliar with Pathfinder 2e are probably watching this video and thinking, that's it? Those are the most broken things in the system? I did my best to find the most broken things in this game, and this is the worst I could find. So make what you will of that. Anyway, see you next time.